everyone, my name is Nico. I'm a third-year medical student, and in this video I'm going to be giving you guys the real tea, the things that you guys should be considering when choosing your medical school. There are going to be generic answers to this question, but I am going to try to give you some deeper insight, some deeper things to consider when choosing your medical school. Not things that you can find on any generic blog, but as always, make sure to check the description bar down below if you just want to jump to the timestamp of the suggested tip. And since you guys are already here watching this video, because it's free, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. It really does help me a lot. And let's get straight onto this video. So the first tip that I have for you guys, and it is a generic one, is consider if your school is pass fail or not in the preclinical years. This is so important, guys. Like, in the beginning, I was thinking maybe it's not too bad to have a GPA in medical school, but honestly, we're over it. Like, you already made it into medical school. You made it this far, and I really think that you just want to focus on doing well in your courses and not worrying about a GPA. You already did that to get into medical school. I don't see why you should go to a school that is going to just stress you out even more with a GPA in your preclinical years. On top of that, I feel like the studying is different in medical school. So especially in the beginning, you don't want to be playing around with new study methods, Anki, or whatever you decide to use to study with in medical school, and then have that affect your GPA, and then you're catching up. It's just not worth it at all. I would really recommend going to a school that has a pass-fail curriculum, at least in the preclinical years. In the clinical years, I think all medical schools do rank their students. And that brings me to my second tip, which is one of the ones that I never actually read about prior going to medical school, and that is, how are you going to be evaluated in your clinical year? I didn't know that so many different medical schools have different ways of evaluating their students once you get onto clinical rotations. Some schools take the shelf. Some schools don't take the shelf. Some schools put a higher emphasis on clinical evaluation. Some schools, it's easier to get an honors versus a high pass. Some schools are harder. All of these things are things that you don't really look into because you're just so excited to get into a medical school. You look if it's pass fail in the preclinical year, but you don't realize that the clinical year is also important, and it's something that you should consider when choosing your medical school. And even deeper into that, if you look at the shelf exams that some schools take all their shelf exams at the very end or at the very beginning of the curriculum, and then other ones do it as your rotation goes on. So in my school, I do pediatrics, then I take the peds shelf, then I do neuro, then I take the neuro shelf, and I personally like that a lot. The third tip to consider is, when are you taking your STEP exam? The STEP exam is an exam that you take usually at most medical schools right after your preclinical year. So you do all your preclinical courses, you take your step 1, and then you go on to rotations. At my school and a lot of newer schools, what they're doing is they're actually letting you take your step 1 after clinical rotations. And it has been shown apparently that these students, or students who go through this curriculum, do just as well or better than students who take it after their preclinical years. That being said, there are thousands of students who take their exam right after their preclinical years, and they do just fine. Me personally, I just like the way my school did it. After preclinical years, after studying through all those courses, I really liked being able to just get straight on into the hospital, work on my clinical skills, and then use all of that to study for step 1, which I haven't taken yet. But now that I'm going back to Boards and Beyond, Sketchy, and watching all of these videos, everything is clicking way faster because I already saw a lot of these things in the hospital setting. So my next tip is regarding tuition. When you're choosing your medical school, really consider if you want to take out these loans with high interest. So I'm actually going into my third year of medical school, and I looked at my interest, like how much interest I had accrued from my first loan, and it's already $5,000. Like, that is insane. And then the loan that I took out for my second year is already almost at $1,000. So really consider when you're choosing your school if you want to have that interest building up as you're going through medical school, because working and paying it off at the same time, that's really not going to happen. So make sure that you choose a school that is giving you a good financial aid package. So I'm actually editing the video right now, and I want to make sure that I'm being like as clear as possible, which I'm not sure if I was when I said that tip. What I was trying to say was that when you choose your school, make sure that you look at all your financial packages and then consider which one is going to be the best for you in the long run. So I know taking out loans for a lot of people, including myself, was
not an option. It's not like, oh, take out the loan or don't take out the loan. I was just more so saying, like, if you have a school that's going to let you go there for free or on a really like reduced price because of your MCAT score or your GPA, consider that one over a school that isn't giving you any financial aid. But that being said, I had friends that had full rides at some schools and still took out the loans to go to their dream school. So really just got to do what, I guess what's best for you. Okay, with that being said, back onto the video.
Another thing to consider is the location of your school. Do you see yourself being happy at your school? For some people, they only have one choice, two choices, and they go where they can go. And that is completely fine. You know, we're trying to be doctors out here. But when you do choose your school, as much as people say that you're going to be so busy in medical school that you can't enjoy your surroundings, I do not agree with that. I feel like being in a place that you feel happy, that you feel comfortable in, is super important and something to consider when choosing your medical school. Another tip that I have that I would never have considered when choosing my medical school is, what does the remediation process look like? So remediation is when you fail an exam, how do you make that exam up and how will that affect you? So for some medical schools, if you fail an exam and you retake the exam during a remediation period, your transcript will still say that you failed the test and that you then successfully remediated the course. Other medical schools, they won't put on your transcript that you failed it once. So that's something to keep in mind. No one wants to think about failure in medical school, but it does happen. It happens to students every single year, and I feel like a lot of students don't talk about it, but it is important to consider, how is your school going to support you if you fail an exam? How is that going to affect your academic calendar? And how will that affect your transcript and then when you apply for residencies? And the last tip that I have for you guys is finding out how responsive is your school to feedback. So feedback is something that you want to consider when you go to your medical school. You want to know that you're going to a school that is making changes every year based on the suggestions of the class. So I go to a new medical school, so feedback is extremely valued at my school. They're always asking, what can we change for the next incoming class? And they definitely have made changes. I could see that being not as enforced, I could say, in a new medical school, in an older medical school, where they kind of are set in their ways, and you want to make sure that you're going to a school that is listening to the students and are making changes as needed. And with that being said, those are the top tips that I have for choosing a medical school, for choosing the school that you need to go to, and for even making the list of schools that you are going to apply to. So I hope these tips were helpful for you guys. I hope I was able to give you something that wasn't so generic, and make sure to drop me a comment down below. Tell me that you watched the video. Make sure to hit that subscribe, hit that thumbs up for me. It really does help me, and I'll see you guys in the next video.